I keep saying that I have no sweaters left to brush or depill because I've been developing these tools for so long that everything I own is very brushed and depilled. So one of my coworkers said she'd send me her sweater, and she's also promised dog hair on this sweater. So this is knit, this is the Tony cardigan knit in Cumbria from Fiber Company, which has some mohair in it. So, oh yeah, there's some pills on there. And this is exactly the kind of thing, these pills and kind of fuzzies. You can see, because it's got the mohair in it, you can also use the brush. So I'm going to kind of use both the brush and the depill tool. You can see how you can kind of get them all. Yeah, try that first. There we go. I'm actually going to use the little the Fuzz Off Comb. And some of these, to some degree, this yarn has some texture, so it's not pills, but actual little unevenness in the yarn or texture in the yarn, which is there on purpose. Oh, it's so satisfying to get all these little guys cut off, especially sort of on the underarm areas of sleeves where there's some friction. Look at all that. Yeah, and then some of these fibers, if you just kind of, especially with mohair to get the texture. Oh, look how nice that looks compared to the sleeve I have not done. There, hopefully you can see that difference. There's how we started. There's how it's going. And then I'll just keep working on the whole sweater and getting that all smoothed and brushed and depilled. So I'm just going to work on the other side of these sleeves, and you may be wondering why I'm using both the brush and the Fuzz Off Comb. The reason is if you have more matted fibers, that's when the brush is good to kind of lift up those fibers. And so if this feels sort of matted, and fibers like mohair can get sort of matted, so to lift them up off the surface, I'm using the brush first and then going back and slicing off what I've lifted with the comb. It just makes the process a little bit easier, and it's just nice to have both. Sometimes you need it, sometimes you don't. Sometimes one or the other is fine, but if you've got both, you're good. So after just shaving, sometimes you get these places that are still sort of, again, sort of almost matted. So that's where, because this is mohair, I'm just gonna hold it down and very carefully brush, not in a really quick fluffing motion, but just evenly and right across. And what it does is it takes those clumps and breaks them up and gets them elongated back into fibers instead of little balls. And that's, if you can see that, maybe this area down here where I've shaved it, but it still looks a little matted. See how that's turning what are little balls back into more of elongated fibers. And again, this is good for, and then you can kind of, if you've got some fiber that's loose, you can shave that off. Gets them to behave more like, less like clumps and more like yarn. So now I think you can see, compared to this other side that I have not done yet, big difference and very fun to do. So there we go, shaved and brushed, much better. It's always going to be an issue with hand knits, but as knitters you have to figure out how much you're willing to live with. If you really hate pilling, you're probably going to find yarns that don't pill as much. If you don't mind keeping them up, these are great tools to have on hand. Again, if this did not have the mohair in it, I probably would not have used the brush. I would just have used, for instance, with merino, cashmere, I'm just going to use the Fuzz Off Comb and not the brush. Things that have even more mohair in it are going to respond even better to brushing. So you can experiment and see. And again, like I said, as knitters, you figure out how much pilling you're willing to live with. I think a little pilling to live with the softness of fibers is okay, but you know, to each their own. So enjoy.